Page 71, Chapter 3, Jayaprakash Narayan's Offensive. The Allahabad High Court held Indira Gandhi to be guilty of malpractice during her 1971 electoral contest in Raebareli. While the court found her guilty on two technical grounds, taking assistance of government officers to construct rostrums and supply power for loudspeakers at two election rallies, and taking the assistance of Yashpal Kapoor, a government official, for furthering her election prospects, it acquitted her of the other charges. That is, she did not exceed the prescribed ceiling on election expense, did not bribe voters with gifts and free conveyance. Her use of Air Force aircraft and helicopters during the election was not corrupt practice, and the use of the cow and calf symbol did not amount to an exploitation of voters' religious sentiments. This being the case, it became clear that Indira Gandhi's election was declared void because of a legal technicality. No one would seriously believe that her victory by a substantial margin could not have come without the services of Yashpal Kapoor or the construction of rostrums and power supply to loudspeakers by government officers. A Western newspaper commented that the judgment was too severe, akin to giving out a death sentence to someone for violating traffic rules. Page 72. The day after the judgment, open bracket, that is on 13 June 1975, close bracket, J.P. thundered from Patna, open inverted comma. Mrs. Gandhi's failure to bow to the High Court verdict would not only be against the law, as found by the Allahabad High Court, but against all public decency and democratic practice, close inverted comma. On the same night, opposition leaders sat on a dharna outside Rashtrapati Bhavan, demanding her resignation as Prime Minister. The President V.V. Giri was in Kashmir at the time. The dharna went on till he returned on 16 June and heard their demands. In the meantime, opposition parties other than the CPI decided to observe a, open inverted comma, resignation demand week, close inverted comma. Para. The reaction of the Congress to these tactics was unambiguous. A large number of Congress MPs called on Indira Gandhi to express their solidarity and pledged loyalty to her leadership. The Congress decided to meet the challenge in two ways. A, to plea for an absolute, open inverted comma, stay, close inverted comma, on the order of the Allahabad High Court was filed on 23rd June to the vacation judge, Justice V.R. Krishna Iyer of the Supreme Court, and B, a public meeting was organized in Delhi at the Boat Club on 20th June. Para. The rally at the Boat Club was a mammoth one, with one estimate putting it at 15 lakh people from almost every part of the country. To the people assembled at the rally, Indira Gandhi made an emotional appeal to protect India's endangered democracy. She pointed to conspiracies hatched by some opposition parties in the name of, open inverted comma, the rule of law, close inverted comma, but which had the sole purpose of removing her. She observed, I repeat, she observed, open inverted comma, the question is not whether I live or die, but one of national interest, close inverted comma. Para. Meanwhile, the Congress Parliamentary Party convened a meeting on 18 June where Indira Gandhi said, open inverted comma, my continuance does not depend on what the opposition demands, but on what my own party and the people want, close inverted comma. A resolution proposed by Jagjeevan Ram and seconded by Y.B. Chavan affirmed complete confidence in Indira Gandhi and declared her continued leadership as Prime Minister to be indispensable for the nation. I repeat, to be, open inverted comma, indispensable for the nation, close inverted comma. Page 73. Devkanta Barua, the then Congress President, made his oft-quoted remark, open inverted comma, India is Indira, Indira is India, close inverted comma. He further observed, open inverted comma, the judgment in no way diminishes the moral authority of the Prime Minister and that the firm desire, I repeat, and that the firm desire of the people provides the justification of her continuance in the, open bracket, Sikh, close bracket, office. We have lost a battle. We must prepare to win the war, close inverted comma. Para. The element of sycophancy notwithstanding, such was the mood of congressmen in those days. They had to fight to survive, and for them there was no leader other than Indira Gandhi who could lead them to victory. Her ability to rake in votes was the Congress remained, I repeat, her ability to rake in votes for the Congress remained undisputed. Para. But the opposition was determined not to lose this opportunity. Expectedly, therefore, JP retorted, open inverted comma, the point at issue is not whether Congress MPs have faith in Srimati Gandhi's leadership, but whether there is rule of law in the country and whether it applies to everyone, high or low, close inverted comma. Thus the opposition continued to agitate and demand her resignation. It was then that Indira Gandhi got the much-awaited conditional stay from the Supreme Court. Justice Krishna Iyer observed, open inverted comma, I propose to direct a stay substantially on the same lines as have been made in earlier similar cases, modified by the compulsive necessities of the case, close inverted comma. He held, open inverted comma, The High Court's finding until upset holds good, however weak it may ultimately prove, close inverted comma. As the appeal was likely to be disposed of in 2 or 3 months, there were advantages in the continuance of the same team dominated by the presence of the key personality within the Council of Ministers. Para. Justice Krishna Iyer's stay order was not entirely in Indira Gandhi's favor. She was allowed to continue as Prime Minister, but as far as the Parliament was concerned, while she could participate in the debates of the House, she was not allowed to vote on any issue or draw a salary. Page 74. The opposition parties could have decided to wait for the final judgment of the Supreme Court, but they did not do so. In fact, in its judgment of 7th November 1975, the Supreme Court Constitution Bench, comprising Chief Justice A.N. Ray, Justice H.R. Khanna, Justice K.K. Mathew, Justice M.H. Beg, and Justice Y.V. Chandrachud, acquitted her of the charges on which she had been found guilty by the Allahabad High Court. The unanimous judgment upheld her election from Raebareli. However, the opposition parties didn't even wait for the expiry of the period of the absolute stay of 20 days granted by the Allahabad High Court and the conditional stay granted by Supreme Court Justice Krishna Iyer. Battle lines were drawn and both sides geared up. On 25 June 1975, JP addressed a massive rally at Ramlila Maidan, Delhi, at which he announced a program of civil disobedience. He repeated his exhortation to the police and the army to disobey, open inverted comma, illegal, close inverted comma, orders challenging Indira Gandhi to bring charges against him if she thought he was preaching treason. He asked students, open inverted comma, to walk out, I repeat, to walk out of classrooms and walk into jails, close inverted comma. He suggested to the Chief Justice of India, A.N. Ray, that it would not be in his personal interest to sit on the division bench of the Supreme Court, which would hear Indira Gandhi's appeal, as he was obliged to the Prime Minister for his appointment. Open inverted comma. This is India. There can't be a Mujib, open bracket, Mujibur Rahman of Bangladesh, close bracket, here, close inverted comma, declared JP. The reference was to Mujibur Rahman's role in converting Bangladesh from a parliamentary to a presidential system and to a one-party, open bracket, Bangladesh Krishak Shramik Awami League, close bracket, system. Para. JP's histrionics clearly highlighted that the opposition's sole aim was to get Indira Gandhi to resign, wanting her out even before the final decision of the Supreme Court. Page 75. Restoration of the rule of law was then clearly not the issue, as it still prevailed in the country. The Prime Minister was entitled to continue in office, and she did so according to the law of the land. By behaving in this manner, the opposition was denying the Prime Minister the legal rights available to ordinary citizens of India. Para. It would perhaps be relevant to mention here that there were others too who felt that she should resign. Shortly after the declaration of the emergency, I had the privilege of meeting the then Finance Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Tajuddin Ahmed, in Delhi. We had a closed-door meeting after a lunch I hosted for him. Citing the example of Gamal Abdel Nasser in Egypt, Tajuddin surmised that Indira Gandhi's image may not have taken such a battering had she stepped down after the Allahabad High Court judgment. Nasser had resigned after Egypt's defeat at the hands of Israel, withdrawing it following a massive upsurge of Egyptian public opinion in his favor. His image had remained intact. Para. I pointed out to Tajuddin the situational dissimilarities in this comparison. Here, a persistent campaign of agitation was being built up to remove Indira Gandhi, and the Allahabad High Court judgment had merely provided her opponents with a useful handle. I cannot tell if he was convinced, but this issue figured in the minds of other foreign leaders too, many of whom could not accept that the only answer was to declare a state of emergency. Para. In a letter written from jail, J.P. wrote that he was appalled at press reports of Indira Gandhi's speeches and interviews and added, open inverted comma, the very fact that you have to say something every day to justify your action implies a guilty conscience, close inverted comma. The letter went on to state, open inverted comma, having muzzled the press and every kind of public dissent, you continue with your distortions and untruths without fear of criticism or contradiction. If you think in this way, you will be able to justify yourself in the public eye and bring down the opposition to political perdition, you are mistaken. Close inverted comma, footnote 32. He flatly denied the charges that there was a plan to paralyze and destabilize the government. He maintained that, in a democracy, people did have the right to ask for the resignation of an elected government if it became corrupt and/or had been misruling. And if there was a legislator who persisted in supporting such a government, he too must go, so that the people might choose a better representative. Para. JP pointed to the mammoth anti-government rallies and processions in Patna, the thousands of constituencies meetings held all over the state, the 3-day Bihar Bandh, and the, open inverted comma, largest ever, close inverted comma, meeting held at the Gandhi Maidan on 18 November 1974, citing them as convincing measures of the people's will. He maintained that in Bihar, the government was given a chance to settle issues across the table, but it preferred the method of confrontation with unparalleled repression. It was no different in Uttar Pradesh. In both cases, JP claimed the state governments rejected the path of negotiation and chose one of strife. Thus, he insisted, open inverted comma, the plan of which you speak, the plan to paralyze the government, is a figment of your imagination, thought up to justify your totalitarian measures. Close inverted comma. Para. If there was a plan, he stated, it was a simple, innocent, and short-term plan to continue the agitation till the Supreme Court decided on Indira Gandhi's appeal. The plan was announced at the Ramlila Maidan on 25th June 1975. Select people would do satyagraha in front of, open bracket, or near, close bracket, Indira Gandhi's residence with the demand that she step down till the Supreme Court verdict on her appeal. The plan was so to extend the agitation to other states subsequently. Footnote 32. Footnote 32, reprinted in the Far Eastern Economic Review, 20th February 1976. Page 77. In his letter, JP went on to say, I do not see what is subversive or dangerous about it. In a democracy, the citizen has an inalienable right to civil disobedience when he finds that other channels of redress or reform have dried up. Even that program of satyagraha would not have occurred to the opposition had you, open bracket, Mrs. Gandhi, close bracket, remained content with quietly clinging on to your office. But you did not do it. Through your henchmen, you had rallies and demonstrations being organized in front of your residence, begging you not to resign. You addressed these rallies and, justifying your stand, advanced spurious arguments and heaped calumny on the head of the opposition. When such despicable happenings were taking place every day, the opposition had no alternative but to counter the act of mischief. And how did it decide to do it? Not by rowdyism, but by orderly satyagraha, self-sacrifice. Para. Disputing the charge made against him of trying to brew trouble within the armed and police forces, JP stated that all he had done was to make the men and officers of the forces conscious of their duties and responsibilities. He maintained that all his exhortations were within the ambit of law, the Constitution, the Army Act, and the Police Act. Para. JP's letter concluded with, open inverted comma, you seem to act swiftly and dramatically only when your, open bracket, Mrs. Gandhi's, close bracket, personal position is threatened. Once that is assured, the drift begins again. Dear Indira Gandhi, please do not identify yourself with the nation. You are not immortal. India is. Close inverted comma. Para. This letter, according to D.R. Mankekar, did not see the light of the day till the emergency was lifted. While I had no personal knowledge of this letter and came to know of it only when his book, Decline and Fall of Indira Gandhi, co-authored by Kamla Manekar, footnote 33, was established, and I propose to analyze its contents in the context of the development which took place before the declaration of the emergency. Page 78. Para. JP had contended that if a government was corrupt, people, through agitation, could demand its resignation. While I do not debate that point, my contention is that such charges of corruption must be factually substantiated rather than be based on supposition. Not a single charge of corruption was established against those whom the opposition implicated as corrupt. Not even the scores of commissions set up during the Janata regime could establish these charges. If the opposition's allegations were based on facts, would this be the case? Para. Second, which democracy in the world would permit a change of popularly and freely elected government through means other than a popular election? Can parties beaten at the hustings replace a popular elected government by sheer agitation? Was it not prudent for those who were determined to change the government to wait till the decisions which were but round the corner? Does the rule of law mean that the remedies available to the common man are to be denied to someone holding an elected office? Why did the opposition want Indira Gandhi to resign even before the appeal was heard by the Supreme Court? Is it not a fact that the Supreme Court permitted Indira Gandhi to continue as Prime Minister against a conditional stay? How could anybody replace her when the overwhelming majority of Congress MPs, with a two-thirds majority in the Lok Sabha, resolved that Indira Gandhi should continue as the party's leader in Parliament and thereby as the Prime Minister of India? Footnote 33. D.R. Manekar and Kamla Manekar, Decline and Fall of Indira Gandhi, open bracket, New Delhi, 1977, close bracket. Page 79. How does the issue of morality at all rise when allegations causing Indira Gandhi to lose the Allahabad High Court election suit were of a technical nature and no charges of moral turpitude could be established against her? Para. A closer analysis of the situation provides the answer. Without a doubt, JP was spearheading the strategy of the opposition. The fact that opposition parties accepted his leadership and joined his total revocation movement had little to do with ideological conviction. With no one among them to measure up to Indira Gandhi's political charisma, they needed a moral authority to provide them strength. And who better than JP to do this at the time? Without JP, this movement would not have been so powerful. It would not have attained the dimension it did without JP, evident in the tremendous popular response it received even before the emergency was declared. The fact that the Congress was defeated in the Gujarat Assembly elections in 1975 was mainly on account of this movement. Para. I did not know JP. I met him only once in 1975. I repeat, 1974, at the Gandhi Peace Foundation, along with Chief Minister, along with C.M. Stephen. Krishnakant had organized this meeting. We talked about the Naxalite movement, and I was impressed by his personality and his genuine approach to this emotional and sensitive issue. I found him to be far above petty political games. He truly wanted to restore moral values in Indian politics and hence expected everyone, including those in the ruling party, to follow his advice. I have reason to believe that he was more than justified in having such expectations. He was a rare Indian politician who didn't clamor for office or power in spite of having it within his reach. He was a man who could have succeeded Nehru as the second most popular man in the Indian political stage. How could such a man not see through the opportunism, I repeat, the opportunism, I repeat, how could such a man not see through the opportunism of the opposition parties? Para. Page 80. Para. However, rationally speaking, I could not support the movement. To me, it appeared to be directionless. It was contradictory in that it was a movement fighting against corruption, yet composed of people and parties whose integrity was not above board. Not only personalities, but organizations too joined the movement to further their own interests. The opposition parties were no exception. Para. This drama had one more, not so evident aspect. It was believed that the tradition-bound Indian people would expect Indira, the daughter of Nehru, to avoid confrontation with JP, a friend of Nehru, particularly in view of his stature. He was like a father figure whose views you may not accept, but whose advice and strong feelings you could not ignore. However, this did not happen. Para. This movement, launched by the opposition parties, went on even after the arrest of a large number of leaders and workers of various political parties. Though the press was censored during the emergency, Hesitations, doubts, and strident criticism were voiced through a variety of other channels. Opposition MPs used the floor of the House to vociferously express their concerns. Open bracket, see Appendix 4 for extracts of some speeches in Parliament. Close bracket. The communist parties, who were less equivocal in the House, possibly due to the rightist component, open bracket, parties such as the Jana Sangh, close bracket, within the JP movement, put together a vociferously critical manifesto, open bracket, see Appendix 5 for extracts, close bracket. In addition, leaders of the non-CPI opposition parties sent 2 representations to the President of India on 5th August 1975. One related to jailed political prisoners and another related to proposed legislation for the amendment of election laws, open bracket, see Appendix 6, close bracket. Page 81. The Lok Sangharsh Samiti, which was constituted to carry on the agitation under JP, wrote a letter to the Prime Minister after the Satyagraha movement was launched against the emergency. Para. Referred to as the darkest period in independent India's history, the after effects of the emergency have significantly influenced subsequent events. So much so that the country has been debating this action even years after its imposition and withdrawal. Para. As we know, the Janata Party government, which came to power after the emergency, set up an inquiry commission with Justice J.C. Shah as chairman. After examining the circumstances under which the emergency was declared, the Shah Commission concluded that it was an action of, open inverted comma, excess, close inverted comma, not warranted by facts and was the action of a sole individual, open bracket, Indira Gandhi, close bracket, to protect her personal interests. A number of published books, too, held this view. Para. In this book, I repeat, in his book, An Eye to India, David Selborne, footnote 34, argued that the seed of the, open inverted comma, emergency aberration, close inverted comma, was embedded in the Indian system itself. He did not believe that India could successfully launch and practice a system of parliamentary democracy. Like most European commentators of his ilk, he too believed that without Western patronage, the Indian democratic system would necessarily be deficient. For the emergency was a part of continuance in the history of India since independence. It is a history which cannot be perceived as a simple trilogy, that is, as a pre-emergency democracy, open bracket, the world's largest, close bracket, as emergency dictatorship, and post-emergency democratic restoration. Moreover, the emergency served as no previous sequence of events has done in modern India to make manifest the nature of the political economy of India, the nature of the state, and the condition of the Indian people. Finally, the Indian emergency, as a response to political and economic crisis, constitutes a paradigm case, an object lesson whose implications cannot be confined to India. Page 82. Para. In his book, The Judgment, Kuldeep Nair, footnote 35, admits that he collected information from various persons, including those in the administration. He claims to have remained objective, but his immediate reaction to the emergency was that, open inverted comma, a nation had been trussed and gagged I repeat, open inverted comma, a nation had been trussed and gagged, close inverted comma. He himself was detained during the emergency, and it was not easy for him to remain, open inverted comma, objective, close inverted comma, much as he would have us believe otherwise. In their book, Decline and Fall of Indira Gandhi, D.R. Mankekar and Kamla Mankekar state, this book presents the scenario of a grave tragedy of the inscrutable hand that gave a twist to the destinies of this country and of the haughty who was convinced of her infallibility, popularity, and immortality, and then stepped on to her downfall. The document of this drama assumes the character of a catharsis. Para. The emergency was a crucial phase in our parliamentary democracy. The declaration, its operation, and finally its withdrawal had a profound impact on India's political structure, as I have mentioned earlier. Footnotes. Footnote 34. David Selborne, An Eye to India, open bracket, New Delhi, 1977, close bracket. Footnote 35. Kuldeep Nair, The Judgment, Inside Story of the Emergency in India, open bracket, New Delhi, 1977, close bracket. Those who had been skeptical of a parliamentary democracy succeeding in India became gleeful at the thought that they had been proven correct. Those who had bought into the idea of democracy and were enchanted by the Constitution of India and the successful execution of electoral democracy since 1952 were rudely shocked. Page 83. Para. I will discuss the impact of the emergency on domestic politics in the subsequent narrative. At this point in the book, it will be sufficient to say here that many of us who are part of the Union Cabinet at that time, I repeat, who were part of the Union Cabinet at that time, open bracket, I was a junior minister, close bracket, did not then understand its deep and far-reaching impact. While there is no doubt that it brought with it some major positive changes, discipline in public life, a growing economy, controlled inflation, a reversed trade deficit for the first time, enhanced developmental expenditures, and a crackdown on tax evasion and smuggling, it was perhaps an avoidable event. Suspension of fundamental rights and political activity, open bracket, including trade union activity, close bracket, large-scale arrests of political leaders and activists, press censorship, and extending the life of legislators by not conducting elections were some instances of the emergency adversely affecting, I repeat, adversely affecting the interests of the people. The Congress and Indira Gandhi had to pay a heavy price for this misadventure.